up and I go, well, what breadcrumbs did I leave myself to come to a suitable conclusion? And this book is a good example of that. I mean, I knew generally where I wanted to go with it. I didn't know how it was going to end. Um, and I approach this like I do all my books, which is I think of myself as the first reader of these books and what I'd like to see and what interests me and and that's how I wrote it. So
Did you have to
yeah,
go back and like counter retrofit things to make it work?
sometimes, yeah, sometimes you do for continuity or for even just thematical stuff, just to tweak something. Um, it's more about going back and eliminating the things that don't play into what the outcome is. So I do write kind of stream of consciousness, and I leave a lot of tendrils out there that go in a million different directions, and I never really know what the resolve of any of those are until I get to the ending and I use one of them. So once I get to the ending and I use one, then I'm like, all right, time to go back and clip off some of these other extraneous things. So there's every book I've ever written has, I don't know, 50, 60 pages of shit that I've taken out of because it doesn't fit in what I'm doing. And I think probably a lot, most of my friends who are writers who do this kind of write in the same fashion. So I feel validated that I'm doing it correctly when I talk to them about this kind of stuff. So
In any version was Andrew Ruth's son? Because that was the shoe I was expecting to drop. I'm like, it's gonna turn out because his mother was gone, and then Ruth shows up to Andrew's father's house. I'm like, what if that was the thing? But the twist was so much better.
yeah, no, it was always I went into this book knowing that I assume everybody here has read it. That's why we're here.
They better have. Yeah.
I went into this book knowing that Andrew's wife was Ruth's daughter, and that was really the pull for me to write this book. I had the story without that is just whatever. But what I liked about it is the book is about guilt and it's about being cursed, and I thought that's fine because there's a million things that are out there that are like that. But it wasn't until I realized how to drive that point home and how Andrew's character, um, once you realize who his wife is, everything you've seen before in this book takes a different spin and all his actions and what he says to his wife and all the things he does takes on a different tone. And to me, that's sort of the beauty in it into that's what made me interested in writing it. Um it, you know, this would I had planned to write this as a novel a couple years ago, and I got kind of lucky due to COVID because nobody was making TV shows that they started buying up a lot of my material. So I wrote this as a an original TV series before it was a book for it was 20th Century Fox and Disney and Amazon Studios. They were all on board and I wrote this whole thing out and kind of had the characters in mind and knew where they were going because I thought about it as a novel. And they bought it, they optioned it, and this whole thing happened. But COVID killed the whole TV series because they couldn't shoot anything.
Yeah.
But after that died, I had this wealth of information on these characters and this story and where everything fell. And it was the closest to an outline I ever had for a book of mine. And so when I had to write my next book, I'm like, well, this is it because it's sitting right here. And it's also, I wrote a book the year before that, or like 2 years, I guess, before this, called Black Mouth. And Black Mouth deals with kids who are sort of innocent and they commit this terrible act at the behest of an adult who coerces them into doing it. But they're really innocent kids. And as I'm writing that novel, I'm thinking, well, what would be the opposite of this? What would be the same story if the kids weren't innocent, if this was sort of on their shoulders and their responsibility. So I look at small town horror as sort of the photo negative of Black Mouth. They're sort of sister novels because they deal with the same storyline but told in different ways. And like there's even a section in Black Mouth in Small Town Horror where they reference what happened in Black Mouth. Like it's one line um,
Hmm.
because they're familiar with an event that happened.
Oh, that's
Um,
cool.
yeah.
Little
So
Easter egg. I love
I
those.
like that kind of stuff, and that's kind of what propelled me. It's those little nuances that really invest you as a writer to get into something and say, this is what I want to spend the next year on, working on.
One of the things that I thought was really cool, and I love this because so much has been written and so many tropes are out there, and there's so many things that are expected that the haunting element of the book is really grief manifest or guilt manifest, but the idea that it's almost like the characters don't dismiss it, but they just sort of like this is their reality, and they're not like super like that's not the point. Like the supernatural elements are really not the point. It's like they're carrying something so much worse. And you're right, when in that moment where you realize, because the whole time I'm wondering, like, why the hell does he hide in his marriage from like these are his friends? Like, why? It didn't make any sense to me. I'm like, he's taking off his ring unless he's trying to hook up with Tig or whatever it is. Like, but that didn't really fit. And so when that shoe drops and Rebecca shows up, and then you realize Ruth, Robert, Rebecca, you're starting to do that. You have that sort of
Got
you
it. Yeah.
you have that sixth sense moment, the sixth sense when you realize everything you've watched was a version that's going to be completely different when you watch
Right.
it again. And it had that same moment where then you questioned everything, and then at the same time it all made sense. Um, and to me, that sort of eclipsed the supernatural, like the trite jump scares. There were no trite jump scares in here, but I think what a lot of other sort of ghost stories or hauntings or being sort of haunted rely on those like kind of terrible moments, like that's sort of like just a symptom of the disease. And I'm gonna admit somebody. I'm a bouncer as well. So, but to me, that yeah, I thought that's what really worked well. It didn't feel expected.
I mean, in risking my horror writer cred, a lot of the stuff that I write, you could really take out the horror, the supernatural element to it, and the story still holds together. I generally try to use the horror stuff, the supernatural suggestion of things as filigree, as a framing device to set tone and suggest certain things, but in reality, my books tend to be about people dealing with people. And I think you could look at small town horror and if you remove any suggestion of the supernatural from that story, it still kind of hangs together. It's still about what these
Sure.
people did and now what the repercussions of that are later in life. And there's I think it might have been Peter Straub. It's a better writer than me who has said it at one point in their lives that said, I'm less interested in writing about ghosts than I am in writing about people who believe in ghosts. And that's how I feel about writing horror fiction. I'm fascinated by the thought of what's there, less than what's there, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense. And that's how I approach this book and most of my other stuff too.
Well,
Because
that's interesting that you say that because the beginning kind of reminded me of Ghost Story,
Mhm.
and
mhm.
then it changes differently. And then I like this the when you did bring up that she was his wife, and all of a sudden a whole bunch of stuff goes together in your mind, and you're like, "What the heck was he thinking? Why would you do that? How could you live with that?" But yeah,
Yeah,
it was good for the. And this would have been a good mystery even if you'd taken out the ghost.
right.
Yeah.
Part of me would think, oh, maybe he's going to end it that the ghost really wasn't real, that was all made up by the
Well,
Was it Eric?
Oh yeah, yeah, because Eric totally killed Meech. He totally did. And like in that one part where he's like conveniently with this syringe hanging out of his arm, and where Andrew, like all that stuff, and then you realize like all the haunting, we all look at hauntings and those things and the supernatural elements as we're being victimized by cosmic forces. You know what? Sometimes those cosmic forces are just trying to find justice and balance. And by the end of the book, Ruth isn't some witch. She's somebody who got her day in court and got her justice. She's crazy. She's out there. She's throwing birds at everybody, and she's creating these like little wicker dolls, but at the end of it all, I mean, she was the one that her son was murdered, and kids made a mistake, and it's horrible to think they got caught up in something like that. And to think there could have been a moment where they maybe could have saved Robert, and that just compounds it so much more. That I think that's the thing that I loved about it, is it flips the whole thing on its head, and it's really about Andrew picking shitty friends. Really, that's the whole point of the story. Andrew's got some real bad taste in people.
You know what? What it comes down to really is it was a so when I first wrote this as a pitch for a TV series, there are five main characters, and I gave each one of them one of the five stages of grief.
Mm.
So this character will act as this,
Wow.
acceptance or denial or whatever, all those, and I went through those stages, and that's how if you read the book from that point of view, there's a lot of each character has their own state, in dealing with that sort of thing. And
Mm.
when you look at I was very careful in writing when I wrote the book about bringing out how because of each character's state in those stages of grief or their level of responsibility, that the curse on them would manifest in a different way. And if when you look at it, Tig is probably the least culpable. She wanted to help him when she was a kid. She
Right.
has, and she's really the only one at the end of the book that gets away. I mean,
Right.
she and her absolution comes from in sort of that epilogue section of the book where Andrew sees her going to Ruth and just confessing, which is what she wanted to do, and her friends held her back from doing. And it absolves her, and she picks up and she ultimately leaves, and she's okay. She's the only one who makes it out,
Mhm.
and she's probably the only one who should make it out. Um,
Yeah, I was like, she didn't deserve, I mean, like she was just sort of there. She did try to do the right thing. Obviously, she didn't in the end, but yeah. So that was it was very much like the rhyme of the ancient mariner right there. She's the curse is lifted because
yeah,
she's come to terms with what she's done, and made it right.
I was also thinking when she met them, had the two of them meet her at the bar and wanted them to take a drink, that maybe she was going to poison everybody, and that was their
I thought
penance
that
for what
too.
they did.
I thought that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, oh, there's too
But
many pages left, so that's
there's when you spend all this time with characters when you're writing something, there are actions that you'd like them to take, but there are actions that um they won't take because you've developed them in a certain way.
Yeah.
And you know, if something fits maybe sometimes for the story, it doesn't necessarily fit for the character. Tig is not a murderer,
Mm-mm.
despite how the situation with her and Dale's wife played out. Tig is kind of a victim, and it would it would shame her character to have her. And I thought about it. I know what you're saying, but it wouldn't feel complete if
Right.
she acted
No.
out of character like that. I think all these people, it's I'm a big character writer. I don't plot out my stuff. I don't outline. Like I said, I wing every novel that I ever write. I never know how they're going to end. And I just rely on the fact that if I write these characters good enough, that they will bring me to some kind of resolution or absolution. And so you got to stay true to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that too for a moment, that she was like, she's bleeding out her eyes.
Mhm.
She's thinking that any minute Bonnie's going to be taken again. She's desperate. She's going to poison everybody to pay the debt. Like, this is, I'm paying the debt. She pours it for everybody. But at the same time, I thought, no, she would go through hell and back to keep her daughter safe and alive, sure, but not like that. Like, that wouldn't be it. And then I thought, well, maybe she's just poisoning the remaining two. But yeah, I had that same thought. But I thought, I love that scene, and yeah, it is like this recurring. They're all bound by this tremendous guilt, that brings them back, colliding back together over and over again,
Mhm.
and it just wouldn't have been right to it would have been a cop out. Like, if that would have happened, it would have been like I
It
would
would
have
have
felt
been
cheated.
like a cliche.
Yeah, yeah, like, she's paying the tab for everybody with her own life as well, but it just wouldn't have been satisfactory. And how it ended, man, I think that like, you gotta wonder, is Andrew like gonna be in that basement cesspool for eternity?
Well, so yeah, when you think about a witch's curse and what it does to somebody, and if you think about Ruth Graves as a character and how she would feel. And so, all right, look, I'm a huge Ernest Hemingway fan. Okay, I totally subscribe to his theory of the iceberg theory of telling a story. You give the reader this much, and the rest of it is just buried under the sea, and they have to kind of piece it together for themselves. And that's what Ruth Graves' character is in this book. It's she. I don't go into detail about it, but you could assess that here's a woman whose son was bullied and killed and left to die. And because of her, and now she's raising this daughter who at some point thinks she's a crazy old witch and decides to leave, and she runs off and marries one of the kids who killed her son. Out of all of those kids who did something to her son, who is she most vindictive towards would be Andrew. And not only most vindictive, but it's all kind of perfectly planned out because there's a line in the book where one of the characters says, if this is a curse and this is what she's doing, why did she wait 20 years to pull it off? Well, she waited because Andrew's about to have a baby with her daughter, and she's going to take that baby, and that becomes Robert.
Yeah,
And this is all orchestrated. So in Ruth's eyes, Andrew, who's our main character, who's the hero of our novel, is the villain of her story. And I love, as a writer, and Philip, I know you could jump in on this. As a writer, you love to dance those lines and say, okay, I could give you a hero for my readers and make him the villain to someone else in this book. And that's a fun dance to dance as a writer to get that point across. It's the hardest part of this book was writing characters that were unlikable but relatable enough to have
yeah,
people read the book because these characters are not likable characters, and that's fine. And when people say, hey, I didn't read this book because the characters are not likable, I don't really think that's what they mean. I think what they mean is these characters are unrelatable. I don't get why they're doing what they do, and I lose interest. I think you could have unlikable characters, but if they're relatable, if you understand why they're doing what they do, you'll still follow that story and feel some measure of compassion or at least some understanding um, for why they're in the position that they're in.
yeah. Hearing you say that, the moment where Andrew's in the car with Eric right before Eric dies, and he goes into a coma, and then eventually dies. But um it is interesting hearing you say that, because then that puts that scene into other context, because Eric despises Andrew as well. And like he's because he's inert, he's inactive, he doesn't do anything. He doesn't he's like an outsider who like he resents him for not taking a stand on anything.
Well, Eric despises Andrew because Andrew carries a lot of guilt and is turning a corner and eventually trying to see the light in what they've done.
Mhm.
And Eric doesn't want that. Eric
No.
is has built a life and is totally, and that's why Eric is really the monster of this book. I mean, he's the one who has you know, he's very easily able to write off what they've done to make sure that his life doesn't change and that the betterment of him and his family and everything keeps going about the same thing. And I thought a lot about that in his character. I thought a lot about that even when they were kids. There's a scene in the book where after it's like one of the flashbacks where after Robert's death, Eric goes to Andrew's house and they have a conversation about should they tell the cops what happened, or this whole story. And yeah, you get the sense of these who these characters are in dialogue because of Andrew saying we should go to the cops, and your dad's a cop, and Eric saying, "Are you crazy? We're not going to say anything." And that's all fine, but really, for me, what's most telling, if you go back and read that chapter, there's two glasses of iced tea that are poured and
Yeah.
sit on the table. And Andrew, who is sick to his stomach and upset, does not touch his. And he comments on when Eric leaves, his glass is empty. He
Yeah.
drank the whole thing and left. And those are the nuances that I feel, you know, uh, really emphasize a character, really show what somebody is thinking and doing. And you could tell he's not a good person just from a nice tea glass being empty, because
Yeah.
that's yeah.
Yeah,
So
no, he's not phased by it. He's and then he makes he obviously told his dad, and his dad made it go away as well. So and then he couldn't live with that. Or you could also say Ruth got to the dad and made him kill himself. I mean, there's any number of
right.
ways you could put it. And but I choose to think that those two things did not exist within Eric's dad's mind. Those two realities, truths, could not coexist. So something had to give. His son, doing the worst thing that he dedicates his life to stopping, and then him being complicit in it, I think ultimately ended him. Were you going to say something, Philip? You came off mute and then you coughed. So
No, I was just coughing because I was coughing.
all right, I didn't know if that
No,
was
no, I was just gonna comment on what Ron was saying earlier, which is that yeah, I think exactly. I was just gonna repeat what he said essentially, which is what I usually do in my life, is repeat whatever Ron says and then call it my own. But no, I was just gonna say that no, but it's true that you don't have to like it, you don't have to like the characters, but you do have to empathize with them to the extent that you understand their motivations, and that's the reality. And then if you can understand their motivations, then you're okay. I think most readers are okay with that. You don't have to necessarily think they're, but it's like with Gothic, you take Tyson, he's
Yeah.
obviously not, he's a pretty solid anti-hero. So the difference is with what Malfi did is, he made it a twist, which I thought was really genius um, in this book. And I also thought that the ending was, and I think I've read, I don't know, 7 or 8 of Ron's books, so maybe more. I just read his new one, Senseless, which you guys should all pre-order. It's really good. And this was the darkest ending I thought of any of your books, Ron, that I read. Like I got to the ending, I was like, oh shit! Like he just went there. Like that's pretty hard. That's hardcore. That's a pretty intense, nihilistic. Like that's a pretty dark
that
note to end on. And I thought it was great. I loved that part. I thought it was a perfect ending.
it caught, man. That I'll not. My brother, when we were very
It
young,
slapped, is what it did.
when I was very young, my brother scarred me real deep with some just is very simple. He looked at me one day and he's like, when you die, Mom can't help you. Dad can't. I mean, I was like probably 6 years old. Dad can't help you. Nobody could follow you. Nobody can go where you go. You will be all alone. Nobody.
Jesus.
He kept saying it over and over. And I'm like, and he's only 2 years older than me. So was he 8 years old?
I
And
think you're gonna say he was only 2 years old, and I was like, "What, dude? Your brother is a fucking omen."
what does he do man, now? Did that screw me up? And that ending took me right back there. Because to think you are trapped in this cesspool for eternity because of something you did, a stupid mistake, mostly because Dale held the thing, Eric covered it up. You almost listened to Tig, but because you were, and it was like, dude, like,
I do have one to ask about that. Now that you're mentioning it, Jeff, I thought that the house was a very interesting character, Ron, the old childhood home. Like it
Mhm.
was so like I kept when I was reading it, I was like, why is he like staying here? And you kept like kind of explaining like it's so awful and it smells and there's this water coming up and he could afford to stay anywhere he wanted, but he's like, no, but he's gonna stay. And I was like, the house feels like such a character or such an albatross of physical manifestation of of his guilt. And I don't know if it was intended or not, but I was like, because there's no real logical reason for him to be there other than he's chained to it, right?
Yeah, I
But
mean, I think
I thought the house was fascinating, a fascinating element.
that's the point. And what and I guess maybe doesn't come across as so, maybe this is my fault in the book is that um they are all cursed and they are all dragging elements of this curse into their lives. And the introduction to Andrew's curse is that he can't not stay at the house. And I didn't want to
Right.
I didn't want to state that outright. I wanted readers to maybe intuit that from reading it, but and a lot of readers have said that. Why didn't he leave? The house is a mess. Why didn't he leave? I'm like, that's stage one of his curse. He can't. He's there. And like, I didn't know how to, so maybe that's my fault. I didn't express it well enough, but that was my intention with that is to show that really everything this guy is doing since you meet him he's in the throes of someone else's power,
I took it when I was reading. I took it as a sign. It's like the physical expression of the guilt, and like he's accepted this sort of burden, and it's going to be like he can't fight it, and he either accepts it and lives every day with it, or he goes out of his mind, and like Meech, who goes out of his mind, and and makes bad decisions. But I think that to me was like this you've earned this, and he thinks like this is my price for that other life I'm living in New York. I'm
Mhm.
pretty much a successful lawyer going through this career trajectory because I am so worried about the baby and the transition, the life change coming my way that I've thrown myself into this work. But really, we realize he's all just coming up on this maybe 20-year anniversary, but perhaps the guilt just builds over the years. It doesn't dim. And then he ends up back in it.
But
One of the
can I just say it's really genius that now that you're saying that, Ron,
Yes, you could say it. Go ahead.
it's really genius because I didn't really think about this honestly when I was reading the book. Um, but that they're all cursed but don't know it is kind of is a really fun, fascinating uh sandbox. That this group of kids are cursed, but they have no idea that they think their curse is pending. Uh
I
and
think
they think
I
they've
think
escaped it.
the way Philip is fondling that pen or whatever, I think he's got a new book idea now. I think you just
Oh no,
gave
I just made a note. I just made a note. Listen, all of my ideas are just rehashes of Ron's. So
it's
I just change the character names. I make it an orphanage instead of a small
yeah.
town.
It's just a facelift. It's just a quick
Right. It's a,
I
coat.
wanted to I wanted to ask, when I read the end, when I got to the end of the book and find out that he's in this coma, and then that beeping noise that he kept hearing throughout the
Oh,
book was actually, medical equipment that's breaking through this, haze of this coma that he's in. It also kind of made me think, well, maybe all of this or a lot of this spiritual, supernatural stuff is kind of this almost like fever dream that he's in. And maybe that a lot of that stuff didn't really happen. I don't know.
Mhm.
And maybe that dank, flooded basement is kind of a symbol of his subconscious and all the stuff hidden in there. It's kind of how when I looked at it when I got to the end, I was like, oh, this is like a whole other level here.
Yeah, so your takeaway from that is exactly what I set out to do when I write something like this is
Oh, good.
I want someone to wonder something like that or
Yeah.
wonder, I've had people say, has he been, was this guy in a coma the whole time and this whole book is some kind of coma hallucination or whatever? That's all deliberate. Like I like that kind of thought. I like people reading these books and coming away with it and going, well, what exactly is this? Because I enjoy reading stuff like that. I like stuff that makes me think and makes me, kind of marvel on the selection of words that puts me in a place where I could think one thing and someone else could think something else.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I think with my in writing it, my intention was basically to have the book is narrated from him already in a coma. Like the
Okay.
prologue
I kind of,
establishes
yeah, that's
that.
what I was wondering.
Yeah.
I kind
And
of
even when he
felt like that.
references I think the one of the last like in the prologue, one of the final lines in that prologue before the book actually starts is he says, we were doomed from the beginning. And I wanted the readers to think he's talking
Mhm.
about him and his friends, but he's actually speaking to his wife because of how the book ends.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Okay. Hmm.
so I like playing with that. I like having people come away with different impressions of what that means.
Yeah.
Um, and
well, I
it in some regards it's easier because I don't have to like land on something directly, but in other regards it's tough because I have to have it make sense in a couple of different ways,
Yeah.
depending on how someone reads the book.
well,
Hmm.
I also love the symbolism of the lighthouse because it's like it's cyclical, right? It swings around and it comes
Right.
back around and it just
Exactly.
keeps and 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 what comes back around is this spotlight on your guilt, like this beaming clarity. It's too clear. It's too much in your face. It's too bright. And and the way it just keeps swinging and it's relentless. Damn. I mean, it just felt, yeah. I mean, and I did love the time overlay, that sort of wormhole you created where he's the
Mhm.
voice yelling down the lighthouse to Meech, and it sort of sets things in motion as well. Like they're so responsible for the events that follow. I thought that was cool. I mean, um twisting the time loop in on itself, it opens
That
up a lot.
that was my favorite part of the book when that part happened and you realize that was him speaking down the lighthouse to Meech. It was just like, whoa, I love that stuff.
Yeah, and again, it's something that when you get to that part, and I wanted it to be taken in a couple of different ways. One, you could take that as, if you're a witch and you have the ability to curse people, what's to say that your ability is limited to the liminal? Like, what's to say that you have to only judge from the here and now? What's who says you can't go back and say, okay, when they're kids, I begin this curse and I start this trajectory of a process and I love that idea. I like that idea of things not being so linear that as we think of them, and that was part of it for that scene.
For me, I thought it was what I loved is like the witch doesn't want to take her justice until there's something to take. Like,
Oh, yeah.
you know, with the kids, they're with their parents, yes, and they're all afraid of going to juvie or wherever, and it's sort of like it's low stakes, but let you get invested, let you earn the pain. You're going to earn this pain. You're going to have something to lose when I come collect this bill. That has more gravity, more weight, more power. It's like making Mitch miss his Steelers game right now for this book club. I mean, that makes me feel good. Like
Yeah, it
Steeler
hurts,
Nation.
but I'm here. I'm here.
Painfully so.
You should be brewing beer. What are you even doing
I
here?
know. I take one day off for the Steelers, and then Jeff's like, "Well, we got a book club, so back to brewing tomorrow."
Oh man, he's got the game going off to the side. He
I
has
do.
to.
Yeah, I'm not really paying attention.
No, that I understand.
I can see.
I didn't even read the book.
What? Stephen Wayne Nelson Jr.?
So I can see the game reflected in his lenses.
Yeah.
I almost took the glasses off, but no, I'm joking. I read this book twice this year. I was telling Ronald earlier that this is probably my favorite book of the year so far. Sorry, Philip.
Yeah, that got awkward. Like,
I didn't think about saying that out loud.
He's used to it. It's fine. He's used to it. It just went dark.
Oh, he went off.
It's confusing because you guys are basically the same person.
It's like going out to dinner with your wife, and then the server's your mistress, and like
look, guys, I didn't have a novel really released this year, did I? Or
exactly.
Serafina, I guess.
Well, I read Serafina like
a
few years ago. But yeah, no,
for those wondering, you can buy this now from Earthling Publications. It's available.
I'm sure
Also has a witch.
I don't know if anybody in this book club has bought Serafina yet.
You can actually pre-order this,
dude. I want that so bad.
Which I read and just sent.
You did. I saw that.
Sent the blurb for Ron Malfi too. But this is very good. You guys are gonna want to pre-order this.
Yeah,
when does it come out, Ron?
Wait for that.
Comes out in April.
Jeff, do you
April 2025. I do not get a percentage.
No, does Jeff get a percentage for letting you advertise?
Oh yeah, no, I totally.
Yeah,
I make gravy.
He can have it.
I think the policy is Jeff pays the advertisers.
Yeah.
He pays for the traffic. It's
somehow I always lose.
Thing.
Somehow. Yeah. So I mean, I started out. This is my first Malfi book, and I was told it's the darkest. So like, where do I go from here? Like, then what?
It's rainbows and unicorns.
It must be.
It is. The ending is bleak. I'll agree with that.
Would you say it's the darkest? I don't know if it's the dark. I don't know if it's the darkest.
I don't know. I mean, Senseless is kind of, it's a little out of my wheelhouse. Senseless is kind of it's a bleak book.
It's bleak, but it's not. It's a different kind of dark. But I'm wondering if Bone White is pretty dark.
Well, how's this? How's the Narrows?
I haven't read the Narrows.
I think is kind of fun. It's my spin on vampires. It's a nice fall read. Like you're currently right now in the time of the year that you want to read that.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
I could make it a
Narrows
Malfi doubleheader.
I like Snow quite a bit.
Snow is my 80s throwback style monster novel. I wrote that fucking book in 2 weeks. I hate it.
You hate it.
We just talked about that.
I just
Bone
got
White. My opinion would be. I mean, I think Bone White's excellent. I think Come With Me is excellent.
Really good.
I think Night Parade is
awesome.
great. I think Black Mouth is great.
I really personally I like Black Mouth. I don't think it gets enough love. I think but I like that story. I don't know.
Awesome.
And Ron's novellas are really good too. Like Mr. Cable and the books.
The Ghost Written collection is like my favorite collection of novellas that I've ever read. It's every story's a banger.
Again, Philip is here, so.
Well, I don't think Philip has a collection of novellas, so that's pretty safe to say.
He won't now.
Yeah, no, now I can't. Yeah.
My brother-in-law, who is also a Steeler Nation fan, he was going to be here tonight, but he's watching the Steelers game, so you know where his loyalties are. Yep. And he said he's starting Snow, so I'll get to tell him that Malfi hates that book. So,
It's
I was going to ask, I mean, as writers, there's never an end to the iteration. Like you edit, you re-edit, you rethink, you could take the story an infinite number of ways within the bounds of the story and the characters. But do you ever like go back and think, man, I would love to have another shot at that book. I would love to rewrite it and maybe do something new.
I mean, honestly, the only book I think about that is really The Narrows. I could have really expanded that, and I wanted to do like a whole rundown of various characters in that town for that book, but it was not. I was under a deadline, and I had a specific idea, and I just kind of stuck to it. Um, Snow was a different story. Snow was a book. I was. I started off my career in small press, independent press work. My first few books were published with small distribution. And I was trying to work my way up the ranks. And Leisure Books at that time was the end all be all for paperback original horror novels. I mean, if you were with Leisure, that's the way to go. And I wanted to get in with them. So I kept sending the editor, Don Daria at the time, you know, the trend was 3 chapters and a synopsis. You could email them back then. You used to have to mail them in the snail
Yeah.
mail. I used to send him these chapters, and he'd write back. He goes, "Your writing is very good, but it's like this isn't really horror enough." And I get that a lot. It's not horror enough. Okay, so I could get all these rejections from him, and I'd send him. And I wrote fast. I would write all these manuscripts. I'd send him these things. So if, like, I don't know, a year went by or something. I didn't send him anything. He sends me an email and he goes, haven't heard from you this year. Are you still writing? I'm like, son of a bitch, this guy's like goading me now. So, I just kind of like, I realized what he was saying. I realized what he wanted. I'm like, and I had this idea for like these snow phantoms that take over a town. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna write that. So I wrote 3 chapters of that book and a synopsis. I didn't have the manuscript written. I just wrote the chapters. I sent it to him. I'm like, here's what I got. And this was sort of like me showing myself that I could be a writer, right? Like I could do what someone else is asking me to do and do it well and get paid. And I sent it to him, and he's like, "This is great. I'd love to see the full manuscript," which didn't exist. And I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, I'm on vacation right now. I'll be back in 2 weeks, and I'll get you the book." And I spent those 2 weeks locked in my basement, a pot of coffee during the day, a bottle of whiskey at night. I wrote that whole novel in 2 weeks, sent
Wow.
it to him,
Wow.
and that was my. Then he bought it from that, with. That was my foray into Leisure Books right before they went bankrupt. That's all.
Don
I'm a
is
good
now
luck charm.
Don is now Flame Tree, right?
Flame
Ron?
tree, yeah, he is.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
where did Snow fit into like little girls and floating staircase era stuff?
Where did
Was it
Snow was before those books. So Snow
because
was,
floating staircase and little girls were actually did pretty well, right? I mean,
yeah, they did. So the
those are
funny
my
thing is,
first Malfi books.
so here's the fucked up thing. If you want a little insight into Leisure Books, so when they bought Snow, then he signed me up for 2 additional books, and he wanted to make my contract with Snow a 3-book deal. The other 2 books were Floating Staircase and Cradle Lake. So I had already written Floating Staircase. I turned it in. So Leisure Books was an extremely uh, cheap publisher. They didn't want to spend any. If you pick up any if any of you own Leisure Books that were published right before they went bankrupt, every book ends on page 320. They only published. I'm not. They only
That's
had money. So offset printed books are printed in what they call signatures. So all of those pages there's like 15 pages in a signature, and they
Mhm.
stack them in the book, the paperbacks that they make. They only would pay for 320 pages, period. So we all knew that going in. And if you had a book that was longer, they either chopped out a chapter or they shrunk your font, and it was 320 pages. I think Mitch probably ran up to go find one.
Yeah, I
So
have I have a copy of Snow. I have to check
tell
you.
me how many pages is it? Am I
All
right?
right.
Don't
It
fuck with me, man.
is.
I may be wrong now.
It's 312.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
All right. So I came in under. I came in under.
You guys want to
Yes.
see the cover?
There it is.
Man, look at that. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's the let me
That's
see
the
the
mass
spine,
market.
Nick.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't want to see that shit. Let me see the
Oh,
spine.
okay. What do you want to
I
see?
know what Ron's signature looks like. I bailed him out
They're
before
on
enough
all of your
times.
books.
They're on all Phil
Yeah.
Fracassi books.
Yeah, right. They're all in my books. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's cool. I only have the reprint that they did a couple years back or whatever that was.
Yeah. Well, that book's been reprinted more times than I could even fucking
But they
count.
did it for the book club or the
Thunderstorm did a copy for
yeah
the book club. Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, so really what happened was when I turned in, so
Jesus.
Floating Staircase was like 150 pages over what they could do. He's like, hey, cut out these chapters. And I
342.
didn't want to cut out the chapters. I said, let me meticulously go through this manuscript and just remove a word here and there until it got to what, and it was like I felt like I was crushing my fucking soul because I love that book. So I went through it and I did this. And then they sent me the galleys, and the galleys were a fucking train wreck. It was the edits were all off. Um, uh, Comments that I addressed that they didn't address. There were still inaccuracies and stuff in the manuscript. And I'm like, whoa, this is not the version I sent you guys. And they're like, well,
Yeah.
fuck it, it's going to print. They didn't give a shit. And I'm like, wow. So I was so distraught. And then like, I don't know, a month later, they filed for bankruptcy. And everybody got up in a whole fucking thing about that. But my saving grace was I'm
342.
looking through, I'm trying to go through and see what
Exact same
my
amount of pages.
yes. How much?
342.
42. Well, he's Brian Keene. They gave him a couple
Yeah.
extra inches. I feel sorry for him. But they
Because they always do look about exactly the same on the shelf. I totally picked up on that.
yeah. Their earlier books were thicker. They didn't have that whole thing, but yeah.
Well, they were going bankrupt.
They were. But so yeah, so what happened the end of that story is I looked at my contract to see what rights they actually had in the bankruptcy because they put up all of their authors' IP up as bankruptcy collateral, meaning if they owed some paper mill in Pennsylvania, this paper mill could, in the settlement for bankruptcy, get my intellectual property as their ownership. They could own my books that were even published. And this is what the bankruptcy was heading toward. And so I looked at my contract and I realized, because I'm a drunk and an idiot, I never actually countersigned and sent the contract back to Don Doria.
Oh,
So
wow.
Don, I said, hey, I never actually signed this contract for these books. What do I do here? He goes, just fucking run. Take them, they're yours. And
Wow.
I got out of it. So they only Leisure only published Snow. I took Floating Staircase, and Cradle Lake was the third book in the deal, and I took them over to Medallion Press. They published them in the way
There's medallion right here.
Oh, nice.
There it is.
I don't have that one.
That
Well,
one doesn't get it. That one doesn't
See,
get
Mitch?
People don't know about it. Yeah.
But you know what, Mitch? Mine is not signed.
Oh, loser. You can
Yeah,
sign
we
it.
still got
You
it.
can
just sign-
sign
I'll
it.
just
You
sign
can
it.
sign
I'll
my
just
name.
sign it
I
right
sign
now.
yours.
It's fine, guys.
Yeah. Sign your name, Philip.
Yeah, Philip, have you signed any Malfi books?
I signed it. King Kong, I signed a few Malfi books, yeah. I also, people would bring me the King Kong program, and I would draw horns on Ron's bio picture.
Yeah, I know. I got them after you got it. Yeah, I saw them.
Yeah,
I'm not as clever as Ron. He would come up with very elaborate things to say about me that were very clever and hurtful.
You draw a
And-
doodle
and-
under your name there.
And I would come back with like some horn, like he drew a penis, and I just would come back with, I'd come back with horns. I don't know. I'm not as
I won't show you
diabolical
what he
as
drew on
Malfi.
Rebecca Rowland's page.
Oh no, please.
Man. Yeah, that I forgot, man. I wanted to go to King Khan, but I didn't.
We had a good time. That was fun.
It was fun. And Philip and I, we rag on each other pretty good, but I tell you what, Philip is one of the best writers fucking working today, and not just in this genre, just period. I mean, everything he does is unique. It's different than the last thing he does. I fell in love with his stuff from reading his short fiction from his short fiction collections. And man, and I think before you and I actually ever met in person, we were talking online for like years. I mean, we became friends just talking.
Well, I used to bug you for advice way back around 20. I think I don't know. I would say the 2017-ish,
I mean,
right around there.
It may even be longer than that. It goes
It might
back.
even be longer than
Yeah.
that. Yeah, about 10 years. Yeah.
I remember when I did the intro to No One Is Safe. I went back to look at our messages to see when we started. I think it goes back to like 2015, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, look, you
Yeah.
know, his stuff is fantastic, and
Every 6 months or so, I would message Ryan and say, "Fuck it, I'm quitting," and he'd be like, "No, come on, let's talk about it. You're fine. It's going to be great." And he'd talk me off the ledge. Yeah.
that's right.
No, you can't. No, there's no way. I mean, there's so man, it's hard because I was not taking on any new authors. I don't want to read new authors, and then now I've read Small Town Horror, and
Yeah.
damn it,
And Ron's got it. Ron's got a catalog, dude. Yeah,
I
you got to get
know.
a catalog.
Dude,
Yeah.
so many books.
I mean, I didn't even. I got like a chapter into Small Town Horror. I'm like, oh, Broken Binding, you got a book over there, and I can't get all the Thunderstorm books. I can just maybe break into Mitch's closet. That's my best.
It's my office.
He's
but
got.
yeah.
Mitch, do you have handy? Do you have December Park, the CD hardcover? That's a great looking book. I don't know.
They did a beautiful job.
I
of
think
it.
I just have Night
Yeah.
Parade of that
Yeah.
one, of the Cemetery Dance ones.
Cemetery. Oh, not
There's
the
a
graveyard,
parade.
not the graveyard shift ones. Or
Oh,
whatever.
not the graveyard one?
No, the
they just did a
original.
standard. Yeah.
So, Ron, was that?
I don't think
the
I have
first
that one.
issue?
Was that what?
Was that the first? Was that the first issue, or was that?
No, the
a
first
reissue?
issue was through Medallion Press as a mass
Oh,
market.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that was like the white snowflakey looking cover.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
There it is.
Sean's
yeah.
got
Oh,
it.
there it is. Yeah, I don't have that one. I need to get that one.
Well,
Wow.
The
Good looking book.
Robert McCammon blurb on the cover, man.
oh, does it?
Wow.
Sweet.
I know.
Ron's moved up in the world. Now all his books have my blurbs on the cover.
Right? It's like 15 years ago, McCammon, but now it's Fracassi.
I know. Titan keeps sending me your books, and I'm like, why do you guys keep sending me Ron's books? Why don't you fucking read one of the manuscripts I send you? Like,
dude, I feel the same way.
I'm not. What am I, a cheerleader
Like,
for
won't return
Malfi?
my
Like,
calls, but goddamn,
yeah.
we're tour. But they
Return an
fucking
email.
Send me like 12 copies of Boys in the Valley. I got
Just
I've got
cashing
that
out,
edition on my
cashing out
house.
somebody else's chips.
that's exactly right. Ron's editor won't return an email, but then next thing you know, he's like, "Oh, here, can you blurb Ron's new book for us?"
Oh, Blur Boy.
I'll do it. Yeah. They let me out of the basement. I come up, I get a hunchback, and they
Blurb it.
I blurb it. And I go back to
This industry
the.
sucks.
I go back to the dungeon. Yeah.
So this has been going on for an hour, so I think I can pour some scotch now because
Oh,
Yeah,
I've been
man.
drinking heavily the whole time. Is that
What do
wrong?
you drink? What
Just the
is
way-
that? What are you drinking?
this is Ardbeg.
Oh, nice.
Ardbeg 10-year Islay or Islay or however they say it. I don't know. Tastes delicious. It's like licking Rob Halford's
No.
leather jacket after
There you go.
Defenders of the Faith
All
tour.
right, who's drinking the Lafroge?
The Lafrogue.
Let's see it. There it
I
is.
say this with all the love at the bottom of my heart. You were the most Chicago guy, Jeff. You really are.
Me?
Yes. Every time you say like words that are foreign, you just sound like you're from Chicago.
Yeah, it comes out. Yeah. No, I can't help it. Eastlay, Islay, whatever. The Bears.
Malfi and I are big Scotch drinkers.
Yeah.
So
This is courtesy
We
of
did all
Kevin.
right in Vegas, right?
we did do all right.
I think so.
Nothing too bad happened. I don't think that I remember.
We were okay. We did some drinking.
Yeah, I mean, you made it back, so it's like what unless you shot a firework at someone's face and they fell over a cliff and now you're cursed, you're all right.
You never know.
I mean, you're doing okay. You're doing okay. Another thing about the book, I will say this, is like it wasn't like they took and they okay, so if you've read Let's Go Play at the Adams, those kids did something barbaric. This was an accident mixed with stupidity and awful outcome and like the
It made it
scale of the grief.
more every day this way, though.
Oh my God, I know. And you could
This could
find
happen to any of us when we were kids with the knuckleheads we probably ran around with.
right, right. I mean, the thing is like you can relate to it because we've all done stupid things. I mean, I can't imagine how lucky I am to be still alive after all the stupid shit I did. You're just dancing on that tightrope in all those crazy, teenage early 20 years. And um but the weight of it was like, wow, it really forces you to examine, it really forces you to examine like the mistakes you make and the impact you can have on the world. And I think that's just because I took a sip of this scotch. So
No, you know what? I mean, and that you make a good point. And one of the things for me in writing this book is the event that that ultimately wound up with Robert's death had to be something that wasn't deliberate or malicious. I had to find it had to be the equivalent of being drunk and hitting someone with your car.
yeah,
Right? You
yeah,
you don't mean to do it, but you're in the
right,
wrong. You shouldn't be
right,
driving drunk and you hit this person and now you leave them there to die. You're not a serial killer, but you're not, and
yeah,
and I tried to find what that balance was. And I think for me, uh, you know, hitting him at the firework and having him go over is sort of level one. Level two is sort of him really still being alive down
huh,
there. And
yeah,
a lot of people don't necessarily talk about, in the reviews I've read or whatever, don't bring this up. But for me, the most horrific part of that book is, I mean, this guy fell, became paralyzed upon landing and drowned when
yeah,
the tide came in, and
yeah,
they knew he was, at least Tig did, they
Yeah.
let they she you know Kevin just wrote, they let him die,
yep,
and I think that's, you have to balance all of that stuff. You have to make it be like, you can, again, these aren't saintly people, but you could empathize with where they're coming. If you're a kid, if you're a 16-year-old kid and something happens, yeah, I mean, look, would I go for help? Yeah,
I
but
think I would, but that's the other thing too, because then the
but you've
reader is
caught but
sitting
they've caused the issue that put him there in the first place. So they're
right,
going to be in trouble. Yeah.
right, but I think we all say that, don't we? Oh, I would do this. Oh, it's an easy thing. Like I would have gone to get help. I would have done that until you're in that situation. That's when it's proven. Like
Yeah.
there are a lot of people that talk it, but
Until you've killed the guy, you really don't know.
right. And Philip knows this.
Philip
I
knows
know,
it.
believe me,
You're on your
I'm
fifth or sixth. I
very
don't know how
aware.
Hey,
many.
what happens in
Everyone
Vegas
is
stays in
tested when there's
Vegas, Philip.
nobody watching.
This is
Yeah.
a safe
Everyone.
place. This is a safe place, Ron.
But Philip does the smart thing. He's like, "Hey, is your mom or like anybody in your family like a witch or anything?" Like, no, okay. And then he shoves him off the balcony,
But
and
my
then
my,
and then
my
it's okay.
first thought when you had they're hinting at something bad happened when they lit the fireworks at the yard and lit one of the things on fire. I thought that might have been the kid who caught
Yeah,
on fire, and that was and they're like, nope, that wasn't it.
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah. No, it was much worse. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I do love the way Ruth strikes me as like if you watch Samurai Sunday and you see those old kung fu movies. And there's always that one that has the white hair and he's got it in a braid all the way down. He barely moves. He just like boom, boom, and the other guy can't even touch him. And that's how Ruth struck me. Is like she's weird and she's abnormal, but it's not abnormal in subhuman. It's abnormal in like so above all the crazy sort of stuff. Like I'm seeing things from this view. She doesn't even say anything to Andrew when he comes to plead for Rebecca to come home. And to
Yeah.
me, that was the most kung fu badass move out of her. And in that moment, I'm like, wow, she's the hero, or at least she's the one I'm rooting for now.
I'll add to that too.
She's also, I mean, the depths of her villainy.
Yeah.
If you think about the end of this book and think about what her daughter Rebecca was trying to get away from, she's even cursed her daughter.
Yeah, true.
Everyone suffers under her watch, and
probably even the baby.
yeah,
You
I mean,
know,
there's no
you
one
gotta
is
go through
free.
that ritual with that baby or whatever when the baby's born, and you just wonder what's going to come of that. You know,
Sure. And you look at every aspect of someone who's come into contact, like Dale's wife going missing is triggered by Ruth, in theory, possessing her and having her, go off and do her thing. The same thing with Andrew's father, where he's in the final chapter, he's in the basement,
oh yeah,
and he realizes the heart attack was caused because the dolls in the yard come alive and start here's a guy who attempted to help this woman 20 years ago,
right?
And just her single-minded focus on revenge used every one of these characters in this book as a conduit to get what she wanted. She fucked over everybody.
Okay.
I mean, her daughter, right? Her grandkid now.
Yeah.
The guy, the lawyer who tried to help her.
I have a theory.
Go ahead.
I have a new theory, Ron. You tell me if I'm right or wrong. She set it up so that her kid would be killed, so that she could go through this whole series of curses, so that she could get the grandchild that she wanted, that she knew she would never get unless she went through this whole series of events.
That is such villainy. Wow.
talk about playing a long game.
No, I didn't plan that. I didn't go that deep, but it is interesting.
Maybe Robert pissed her off that morning, and she's like, you know
Well,
what?
he was handicapped, right? Maybe she was like
one of my exes, I think.
he was following the stew,
But who's to say the ritual actually worked? Maybe her son didn't come back, and maybe there's something else in the baby. She could have accidentally brought in a demon or something.
Mm-hmm.
You can't trust those witches, man.
Right? You can't trust them.
No,
can't trust them as far as you can throw
really. No. Jason, were you going to say
mother-in-laws.
something?
I was going to say that one of the things that really struck me is when Andrew showed up at the door and she's like, "I know who you are." That's something that sunk deep in me, especially as I went on further and learned out, about the mother-in-law son-in-law relationship that he didn't even know about, or that she didn't know about. He did, obviously, but when she said that, "I know who you are," at first you're inferring that she knows about the crime that he committed,
right?
But take that a step further, and you're like, "No, you took two things from me."
So, the daughter and the son, but right, and that's one of the things that clicks into place when Rebecca shows up at the doorstep and she's like, and you realize he married Ruth's daughter, and so when she's looking at him the whole time, that is pretty wild. And I like how she calls on that old payphone. That's fun.
Yeah.
Or that hallway phone, that landline.
Yeah.
I like that touch.
I appreciated the atmosphere, the ambiance of everything happening during the 4th of July too. You got fireworks blowing up in the background while something sinister is happening, and 20 years later, it's like a repeat, but there's still the fireworks going on. The whole town is celebrating, and these characters are going through it.
If you've ever had any bout of depression or anxiety, the summer and the 4th of July, to see everybody else living it up and being happy is the absolute worst time. Like you're like outside that window and you're looking, you're like, how did you look like me? You're an animal like me, but you're happy. Like, how does that happen? And I think that, and the isolation of the town and the whole way it feels like a dead end, and it feels like Tig was stuck there, and and then Eric is his dad after his dad was so abusive. It just feels so like these ruts go so deep. And then when you think Ruth is like an ancient part of the town and has been getting the shaft from the town her entire family's life, it just feels like nothing changes. And then of course the cyclical nature of the lighthouse reinforces the point.
And I wanted to be it wasn't necessary that anybody picked up on this, but my point in some of that stuff was to wonder how far back again Ruth's curse on these people go. You know, is this all just happenstance and how people grow up and the normal part of becoming an adult, or is Eric cursed to walk in the shoes of his father? Is Tig, whose name from Shakespeare, Antigone, means taking on the responsibilities of your parents, taking over the restaurant, you know? So is Dale, who the only other character other than Andrew to have escaped to go and do something else, ultimately is drawn back to buy a plot of land in this town that is now sinking him financially.
Yeah.
Like, if you look at all of those things, you're like, why did all these people do the thing that they wouldn't want to do? Is that part of the curse too? You know, even Meech, who it has just become this, for the sake of the story, this, sort of empathetic mouthpiece to relay information that he knows that she's kind of imparting on him to get to the other characters. The only one who seems to have free reign is Andrew, but she's got other designs for him because he's the father of this baby that she needs, you know. So it was imperative for him to get away and do that.
I can't remember Meech's first name. What was Meech's first name?
Matthew
Meech.
Matthew.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, and there's two houses too that are kind of characters, as we were talking about, the one that's really fallen apart and seems to be getting grosser by the chapter in this book that Andrew, who seems to have his life together, comes back to. And then there's this pristine house that Dale lives in, and Dale's the one that's really falling apart. So it's they're kind of mirror opposites of each other.
Right.
The people and the houses that they live in, or that they're drawn to and stuck in.
Yeah. Beautiful and empty is Dale.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's referenced like where Andrew first sees Dale's house, and they thought it was one of the staged homes for a community. Yeah, model home. You know, and my thought there was to show that, like, look, that's the spectrum of, like, you know, as far as metaphor goes for where their lives are, but they all kind of come back to the same thing. And you could live in squalor, or you could live in this untouched, no pictures on the wall kind of house, but it all kind of comes back to the same thing. You can't escape it no matter how you change your surroundings, you know. So yeah.
Well, it's my first Malfi. It definitely won't be my last. I was blown away. I thought it was awesome. And and this conversation only solidifies that. But does anybody else have anything to ask? Because I don't want to take up the whole time. I know Mitch always has great questions, so I'm going to put.
I have one quick question.
Which is
it's about the Narrows, Malfi. And I meant to ask you this: how much did you change for the broken binding edition? Because it says it's got the author's preferred text right there.
Yeah, no. So that book was
Jeff. Hold that up again. What's that top blurb?
Ooh,
that is the only reason it's sold out.
I saw more of this guy's books. I swear to God. No, but I'm curious. How much did you change? Did you legit like change stuff?
No. So that book was originally published in 2010 or 2012 or so, and then went out of print. When it was originally published, it was published through Sam Hain Publishing. They released the prologue as like a free downloadable ebook to entice people to buy the novel. So the
Oh,
prologue was never included in the actual print version of the novel. So that
how
so
interesting.
now for the first time, like it's all together. I wrote an introduction to it that kind of talks about how I came up with it. Um, and then the only thing was I get very OCD about changing shit that's already been published, so I don't want to do that. But I was hey man, times change. And I was told that two references in the book were not
Didn't age well.
PC anymore.
Oh
Oh,
boy.
So
Oh, interesting.
there was a description in the original text of the book where a grain silo in a farm was described as having the top of it looked like a Chinaman's hat. And I was told that is not a
Ooh.
politically correct way to phrase that. And I said, okay. So we changed that.
Chinaman's not the issue.
That's right. You can say Irishman, I guess, but not
Irishman,
Chinaman.
yes.
They didn't build the
Well,
railroads
I can
here.
tell you this: in the movie business, it's very common to phrase you call a China hat is a type of lamp that we call a
Ah.
China. It's called a China hat because it's
God
got the
damn it.
kind of.
See, you know what? I only used you as my Los Angeles guy. I didn't know I needed to use you as my farming
I could have helped
grain
you out,
silo
man.
guy.
I could have helped you out.
And there was another line about some old guy running a grocery store saying something about I haven't seen you in a coon's age, which I don't know. I
Ooh.
read that in books when I
Yeah.
was growing up, and they're like, "Ah, you can't." And my argument, I almost kept it. And I'm like, "Well, this is what this dude's saying. It's not
Yeah.
me,
Right, it's a character. Yeah.
But I'm like, you know what? I don't fucking care. Change it. So I don't remember what I changed it to, but
You know,
I get yeah.
Coon dog.
Yeah.
Philip
That's-
Fracassi's blurb is for small town horror, by the way. So he's not actually endorsing the Narrows. He's just saying
It's-
No, I haven't read
masterwork.
the Narrows. I haven't
You
even
need a
read that book.
flashlight to see in a lit room.
Yeah,
Yeah, do you?
I'm old. I'm
Legit?
super bad.
You need to
Melfi
get
is a
the
masterful
eyebrow.
writer. Buckle up, kids. This is one you won't soon forget. On small
your
town
black-
horror, but he's not. He doesn't care about the Narrows. He doesn't.
Maybe that's why he's
I
asking questions about it.
legitimately have not read the Narrows. I'm on the cover of. I think I'm on the cover of They Lurk too, and I haven't read that fucking book. I don't know why they keep throwing my shit on there.
I
It's
do.
like-
I say, hey, every book Fracassi hasn't read, put his name on it.
There's like the 3 books I haven't read. I've read every other book, but they don't.
He's a sure thing. Go for him.
Are you
Yeah.
excited for Come With Me from Earthling?
oh yes.
I am. So let me tell you something. I saw the artwork that Vincent Chong did, and holy shit, it's
Oh, I'll be right back. I have a show and tell.
Oh, I
Uh-oh.
want to show and tell too.
Yes.
Oh no. Oh no.
Probably
Mitch
Vincent
cannot be
Chong.
outflexed.
I got
This
flex.
is awesome.
they
It's
may
like
have
David
more than I
Attenborough.
have. I don't-
It's a race, I guess.
I'm excited to see the artwork in that because
So I met Vincent Chong in at King Kong in
Mitch,
Vegas.
did you find yours? Because I don't want to go
Yeah.
hunting for mine.
Oh,
thought
I
you were
found
always
mine.
with it.
Yeah.
Okay, good. It's the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's just the arc. That's not what the final book will
But-
look like.
No.
But
I
it
just
does
thought I
have-
had
Not
the art.
the yeah. Go ahead.
But it's got some art in
There
there.
you go.
Oh wow.
Oh wow, in full color too.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
this arc
beautiful.
is sick.
Well,
Yeah,
no,
I
I
don't
don't
wanna
want to spoil the other photos.
it's
but-
not a standard Earthling edition. It's one of his what did you call him? Mitch?
Modern
Special-
classics.
modern
classic.
classic. And it says Mitch.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where's my beer?
Enough with the flexing.
The
Unless you're gonna
signature.
put coconut oil on the arm.
So I met Vincent Chong at King Kong recently in Vegas, and the promoters of the event took us all out to dinner at a really nice restaurant. They treated us really well, and we
That
were all,
was good.
at this steakhouse the last night of the con, and Vincent is there, and I go over and I'm like, "Hey man," I said, "I just wanted to introduce myself and say, I've loved your work for a long time. I'm so happy that you did, you did these paintings for the book, and I'm very excited about it. It's great to meet you, and blah blah blah." And he's staring at me, and he goes, "Ron, we spoke for about a half hour last night. Were you that drunk?"
I hate when that happens.
Wow.
Oh my God. All right.
That's awesome.
So when I left that dinner later that night, I went back over to his table and reintroduced myself.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's
Yes.
hilarious.
That's the only way to play that.
Well, as you can see, my wife just got home.
I just waved to her.
Yes, Ron waved to you, which means I probably have to bow out in a minute.
Bow, take
Oh
him.
yeah, you're
He's
getting.
done. I'm done too. I got to put my kid to bed.
Yeah, the Sandman Sims cane's gonna come off the screen and pull you right out of the shot. Yeah, no, I think we all have lives, and I feel like I've stolen enough of your life. You're not trapped in a basement that's filling up with cesspool water, so you're lucky. But that's where you left all of us with Small Town Horror. Brilliant book. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. I don't know if anybody else has anything they want to say.
So I really appreciated the notes that you gave at the start about it being a series that you were screenwriting for and trying to get optioned. If that comes up again, is that something you would entertain? Because it seemed like it was right in that era that those Flanagan series were coming out, and it seemed to be really in the same mold, the same vibe, same tone. And I'm pretty sure that audiences will be looking for that again in the future. So
yeah, I actually went to college with Flanagan, so he doesn't
Wow.
he won't respond to my emails. But no. Yeah, no, I'm always there's always a few things. I've got the Narrows is currently under option. Mr. Cables is under option. Come With Me is under option again for a TV series. I'm just striving to get to where Fracassi is with his A24 movie coming out for Alter. Fantastic,
that's
right?
a flex.
I want fucking premiere tickets, man. I want to come out to LA.
You can be my plus one. My wife won't mind.
Plus 7.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I think
small.
Cool. I have a question. If Jeff, but backing up what Jason said, Malfi, you're gonna write into these. I already have. This is how amazing my wife is. I have a scotch, and she brought me more scotch.
Stephanie,
hell,
I need something. I'm empty.
And look, it's in a Logan's. You can't see it.
How creepy would it be? How creepy would it be if she just walked in right now over here and brought me a drink?
Well, no, she just leaves my screen and then she goes into your screen and then it. No, but what I was going to say was I was wondering if
I would lose my mind.
how much of the are you like looking at writing pilots, Ron, or writing? Are you getting involved with that side of it, or are you just kind of like optioning and take it and see you later?
It depends on what the project is. I wrote the pilot and was going to be the showrunner for Small Town Horror when I pitched that as a TV series.
Well, that's right, because you're going to hire me. I forgot.
That's right. We talked about it. You were gonna be the stunt double,
right?
With the Come With Me TV series, there's two other guys who are the main writers. I wrote the pilot with them.
That's cool,
and they're fucking cool. These guys have been around. I mean, these guys were. They produced fucking Quantum Leap and the Dead Zone TV series, that TV series Haven. They fucking wrote the finale of Miami Vice back in the day. I mean, these guys have been around. So it's pretty cool working with them. So yeah, I mean, look, at this point, I want something on the screen and get it done. So however I need to facilitate that, I'm cool with it. So I've been working with a lot of screenwriters. And I'm also like, hey man, like my books are done. So if you want to make this into a movie, whatever liberties you want to take to tell your version of this story, I'm cool with. As long as the story hangs together and makes sense, I'm good with whatever changes. So
I'm glad to hear an actual author say that, right? Yeah. I mean, it's like that's because outside, I think like, yeah, you've written it. Let them pay you to do it again. Like, let them pay you money. Like, and I think Small Town Horror would be a great series, a limited series, a 6-episode series. I think.
Oh yeah,
easily. Yeah. I mean, the people would be like, "Can you believe what just happened?" Like, I just feel like when that shoe drops, it would get a lot of buzz. I think a lot of people would dig it.
Yeah, it'd be a great finale twist.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, yeah, because you saved that super punch for the end, and I think I think that would I think fans want to feel like, I think that's why Game of Thrones was so awful, because they'd spent that trek, that journey, they got all the way to season 8 and then they just got shafted. I think if you build, like Breaking Bad started out kind of like hokey, but by the end you were wow, like if you pay it off at the end big time. And I think that's what this story does.
Yeah.
It would be really impressive.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you.
It was a fun read.
Thank you.
It was really great. Yeah. So
Go buy this one, you guys. Go pre-order it.
Yes.
senseless.
Already did. Got the
Senseless.
Books a Million link.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
an arc
thank you.
that Mitch
Oh
doesn't
yeah,
have.
there's
I
signed
don't have that one.
copies. Malfi, there's signed copies of this from Books a Million. Is that what I saw you posting today?
Yeah, they're doing Books a Million.
I just
picks up-
skim your posts, so I don't actually read them. So I'm not sure.
I don't.
what
I
you-
barely read them myself. Even when I post them, I barely read them. Yeah, they're doing. I think it's 500 limited
Nice.
hardcover signed in their stores. Yeah,
Is that one local bookstore that you have signed books at? Are they going to have senseless as well?
they will. So anything that's ever ordered from that store from me is signed.
I like how Mitch doesn't
5
want to
minutes
name
down the
store.
road.
Mitch, put the
Yeah, what's
fucking
the
That
bookstore in
one
the
secret
chat.
store. That one secret
Put it in
store.
the chat so people can see it. What it is.
It's Park Books.
Yeah.
We don't
It's-
run. No, we don't tell them. That's for
No,
me.
that's a bad marketing ploy, Mitch.
There are just a few people here.
I'm going
Well,
to
tell-
Mitch, I'm going to tell you how it works. Here's what happens. Once a week, I get an email from the bookstore saying, "Hey, we've got a stack of books for you to sign. They need to go out." I show up. I sign a bunch of. They bring out a bottle of whiskey. I sit in the back room. I get fucking shit faced, and I sign all these books. And by the time I get to the end, they're like, "You're too drunk because now you're saying terrible things to strangers. You don't know." We're gonna have you come back tomorrow.
No, near the end,
And
you're
it
signing
starts all
my
over again.
name.
So
Near the end, you're
my
signing
life.
my name, and there's like, this isn't even
Today,
you.
why are you signing Philip Fracassi?
This is a different person. You're not even. It doesn't make sense.
Park Books. Park Books. So yes, I'm going there and
Yeah.
I'm going to order everything. One of everything.
They're great.
You can't go wrong. Seriously, you cannot go wrong with a Malfi book.
So know that if you order from Park Books, you are treating me to an afternoon of drinking in a bookstore. Well, I sit back there. Kevin, who's is that? Oh, there it is. There it is. Yeah, I'm drinking. Every time I got to go in there to sign.
Nice.
That incentivizes my purchasing decisions.
There you go.
For sure.
I'm going to order Fracassi's books through them now.
They don't carry Fracassi.
No,
They don't carry. They don't carry my shit.
Tell you what, order Fracassi's books and ask to have me sign them, and I will.
No, don't do that.
Oh
don't do
yes,
That's hilarious.
No, please don't do that.
Boom, and his value just goes right through the roof.
Oh, I love that war. I love that.
Well, we may. I may work. Malfi and I are going to be at AuthorCon 5, I think, together, and I might work with Park Books on that one. But you guys have all my books, so
yeah.
Well,
We have a few.
I couldn't have hoped for a better book club chat. This is awesome. This is wonderful. And I'm gonna cut you all loose so you can go about your lives.
Yeah, we gotta watch the Steelers.
And you're gonna go watch the Steelers. How are they doing, Mitch?
no, don't tell me. Don't tell me. I got recording. I'm
Oh,
recording.
okay.
Oh, wait, you're
Well,
not. Are they playing the Lions?
No,
they're
they're
playing the Browns.
But I watch. I'm a football junkie.
He's a football guy.
I watch every game. I watch every game.
Oh,
Also,
I didn't know.
Philip.
Yeah,
I
I'm a
did not
junkie.
know that.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
wearing
sad.
my shirt as well. How cute!
All
Is
right,
that?
I gotta leave. I gotta go put my kid to bed. I appreciate you guys.
see you,
You
Ron.
go do it.
Oh,
Thank you.
Great.
Thank
you
you,
guys
Ronald.
for reading.
By the way,
Thanks for
put
coming
the
on.
kid to bed is a different way of saying I got to go get my drink on. Just so you guys all know. I want to make sure that everyone's clear.
Philip, I love you, brother. You're my
Love
man.
you, buddy.
Mitch, good to see you, pal.
Yeah, good to
Thank
see
you
you,
guys
brother.
for having me on. This was
Awesome.
great.
Thanks, Ronald.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah,
guys.
cheers.
Thanks.
That is awesome. Thank you guys. And I'm going to end it and it's going to record and I'm going to post it on Patreon and then everybody can see it. So all your
right.
secrets will be exposed.
You guys are the best. Miss you all. Hopefully
Yes.
see you all soon.
Sabbath
Yeah,
reunion.
absolutely.
soon.
Have a good one.
See y'all.
Bye.
Bye.
Town hall.